What's good, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Goats of Growth. Please subscribe, rate, and review if you haven't already. And like always, the J. David Group, which is my company, is sponsoring this episode. We help recruit today's go-to-market teams that will lead the next generation of unicorns. Email me, Webb, at thejdavidgroup.com to learn more about how we can help. And don't forget, I'm working on a book with the same name, The Goats of Growth, which is the untold stories of the greatest revenue leaders of all time, due out by the end of 2023. So follow me on LinkedIn if you're not already to learn more about that. Now, my guest today is Ethan Schechter, who's the Vice President of Sales at Snyk, which builds developer-focused security tools to find, fix, and monitor known vulnerabilities within third-party components. Ethan, welcome to the Goats of Growth.
Thank you, Jay. Glad to be here. Great Snyk value prop there. Thank you.
There you go. Well, you know what? Let's extend that a little bit more.
Okay.
A little bit of justice, but tell me and the audience a little bit more about Snyk and the value proposition there.
Yeah, I think we like to start with the why, and I was having this conversation the other day. I mean, we're here to help the world be more secure, right? And the way we have done that is by focusing on creating the category of developer security. And so the idea of with software eating the world and everything moving into being an application, the developers who are writing that code are really the people that should be empowered to keep those applications secure by moving cybersecurity, as they say, shift left, which is a little bit of a buzzword, but into the actual development of the application instead of, a gate or some type of production focused cybersecurity process, which there's still a need for, but really, we saw this as a way to kind of revolutionize the process by creating this category.
You just said that twice, and I want to talk about that. When you say creating the category, tell me what that means, and how are the muscles that you're using different than, say, something where a category has already been created?
Yeah, I think what that entails is looking at the mousetrap and saying intrinsically that mousetrap no longer works, right? A lot of our competitors, they have great technology, but it was designed to protect organizations for an outdated from an outdated process, right? The way software is developed today, it's constant. It's pushing new applications to production at the speed of light, right? And most of the products in this space were developed prior to that, where there were planned releases or there were monthly cadences. And I think we, our founder Guy Pajarni and everyone who's been here since really saw, okay, let's design a platform from the ground up that enables developers to fix these issues and to be secure in a way that kind of coexists with how software is developed today, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's something we really are excited about and are still excited about today. I mean, we see ourselves as wanting to build a generational company that's going to continue to evolve this category.
And you joined, I believe, a little over 5 years ago, and I would imagine that, and that's part of the reason why I'm sure you joined, which is category creation and the excitement that I still hear now, palpable in your voice and in that description. And so,
and if developers love something, you're onto something. And when I previously at my last organization also sold to developers, built relationships with developers, and when I started to look at Snyk and saw that we even then had 100,000 free users who were developers volunteering to use a security tool, that just doesn't happen if you don't see that passion. So that grabbed me as well.
And so what about when you're creating a category, as you just described, obviously that means that there likely isn't budget allocated toward something in particular, right? Within that category. People aren't necessarily thinking about it because it is a new category. And if not thinking about it, they may not know or understand the real opportunity, or perhaps maybe even the challenges that they're facing, right? Because you've already answered it long before they even thought about it. So how does what needs to be done differently when you are category creating? Is it I guess what I'm asking is from a messaging perspective, like high level, educating the market first. And then once the market is educated, what happens from there? A sense of what the mechanics are there.
Yeah. Well, one smart play. I mean, I've been in educational sales where there is no budget at all, and that you could still be successful doing that, but that is definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
Luckily, the idea of cybersecurity was formed, right? And so there are budgets you can pull from, but to your point, you just need to convince those organizations that the way they're currently going about handling this issue or this philosophy is outdated, and that they should allocate that budget to something else, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think you've got to really love your customers, and you've got to really get them to help you convince others, right? And so very early on, I mean, we had a core principle, be ridiculously easy to work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to understand that the first time you talk to someone, they might not get this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to be tempted to go negative or go to fear. There's a saying in cybersecurity, like breakers versus builders. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to say, like, do you understand how bad your risk profile is, the way you're handling this thing? But that's not going to get you anywhere. And I think you've got to say, okay, it's natural that the first time someone hears something, or the 10th time someone hears something, if it generally is a category creating idea, you've got to be okay with that. You've got to work with people until they get there. And so one of the things, again, I think that we did, and this was prior to my time, but having a free version of the product where anyone can use it, at no charge is just game changing, because you can say to someone, look, we can agree to disagree today. You don't have to believe me that you should be giving me all that budget and you should do it this way, but hey, go try the product. Go have 5 of your developers sign up, and let's talk in a month. Let's talk in 3 weeks, right? And I advise a lot of new modern companies that are trying to category create. You've got to have that bottoms up motion. You've got to have that free version of the product. And then I think as it relates to sales teams, you've got to hire people, and I know we want to go there at some point. You've got to hire people who understand how to interact with those end users and how to develop those relationships at organizations.
So when you're going through that, we mentioned 100,000 users and users that are using the product for free, or you're advising companies to do so.
Probably like 80,000, and they told me it was 100,000 to get me to sign on the line. But that's okay. We need the storyteller early on. Something
absolutely.
Like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about 10x mindset before, which we'll get into in a minute, right? Abundance and scarcity. But when you're working, let's just say, for instance, with other companies, as you advise to, in order to, if you are category creating, to offer a free version, where's the tipping point? Like, where's the point where you say, at which you say, okay, now it's time to charge? What are the indicators that you're looking for to say, okay, now it's time to put up a paywall?
Well, I mean, you don't necessarily even ever have to put up a paywall, right? You could just have an enterprise version. You've got to figure out what are the feature functionality that go in that enterprise version. Like, we still have a free version of the product, right? Don't discount. Like, I talk to a lot of founders, and they're like, people want to buy, but then when we get to the end of the process, they don't seem to want to actually buy. And so I'm really frustrated with my team. It's like, no. When the product's really good, like, people say, like, where can I send you money? Like, they do. They may still, it still may not be enough money, or it might be something that you think, we should be getting more, but, really don't rush that product development. Like at Sneak, we had 2 full years before, and I wasn't at Sneak. Sneak was founded in 2015. We didn't decide to go to market until mid 2017. So really having a core use case that is ready and you're confident is actually of value, I think is a key thing. So that starts before you ever have anything. And then I think, whether you've hired a first salesperson or you're just the founders closing deals, once you get really busy, that is a simple, easy way to say, like, okay, we need to add more. Now, I'm not saying maybe you don't know enough from that to say turbocharge, but like when you're like, yeah, this is Tim and Tim's on demos all day long, that's a simple sign. Like, don't overthink it. Get 2 more Tims in, right? And increase that data set. Does that continue to happen? I think that's super important. And again, don't get distracted with like other people's problems, i.e., well, should we hire SDRs and go outbound? It's like, why? The only people who go outbound, and we go outbound at Sneak, so I'm not judging, but like, go outbound when you don't have enough people to talk to. If you have a true freemium version, and you're getting people to talk to you, squeeze the juice out of that lemon before you start worrying about like, traditional selling problems, right? It's okay. You can handle that next year, the year after, etc. Yeah.
So tell me about that. You mentioned that the Sneak was founded in 2015, didn't go to market
Yep.
until 2017,
Yeah.
and you got there shortly thereafter, probably about like maybe
Yep.
6 months later or so.
Yep.
Tell me about what the makeup of the team was there and
Yep.
how you went about building and scaling the team.
Yep.
A little bit of what you just said. Yeah.
I should apologize to the 26 people who came before me. They would probably say, "Oh, we were going to market." Like, you don't know how hard this is. So I should be careful to caveat. We were going to market, but we were more concerned with users and feedback, et cetera, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, look, I have a passion for early stage sales leadership, and that's what I've done for the last 15 years over my, Sneak and the two companies prior to that. And so, one, I think it's like, for anyone going to look to do that, like, does the product resonate with you? Do you see that passion? How the team was set up, we had 26 other people. And one of the key things I look at, when I'm saying like, okay, should I take this job or should I look at this is, one, what is that strength of that team, right? Like, what do you see from that team that makes you feel like, okay, we can do this? Because that first year is just, it's utterly terrifying and utterly exciting, but it's going to be a blend of both. And so like a metric I look at is, how many exits does the team have prior, right? So I've had 2 acquisitions prior, not saying they lit the world on fire, but when you look at that, and so I think at the time, like we had 10 to 12 exits amongst the 26 people. That doesn't make them better than anyone else. It just means you probably made a lot of mistakes somewhere else. And so you're with a group of people who has seen pitfalls before, right? And
Yep.
has learned from those pitfalls. I look at the user metrics, like kind of what I talked about those free users. I look at like, okay, is there ARR that the founders have been able to close? No shade to any founders or early stage people, but you're not a classically trained salesperson. So if you're getting deals done, that tells me there's some product market fit there. And then I'm looking at, the CEO, because you're going to have such an in-depth relationship as that first sales leader with that person. And so, do a lot of research on that individual. And Guy Pajarni, or, founder and then CEO, I just heard nothing but great things about. And that felt great, right? And those early interactions with him just felt great. And so that was kind of the kind of things I look at when I'm looking at joining. And then, I quickly stumbled into our first salesperson, is like, okay, this poor guy is on demos all day long. Like, he doesn't have time for a strategic thought. That to me, like, it wasn't rockets. I was just like, okay, we need more salespeople, because also where we want to get to for the goal we've told the board, like, we need, even if that one salesperson has the greatest year of their career, he would have to do 1,000% of his one quota, right, for us to get there. That's not going to work, right? I think you got to explain the concept of winning ugly to early stage founders, and that's not a bad thing. But it's like, listen, we're not going to, like, we have years to get super precise and world class. This year, if we hire enough salespeople and we get 80% of our they all get to 80% of our quota, but there was enough quota that gets us to our goal, we're going to look good, and we can say, yeah, we've got to get more efficient next year. That's an easy thing to take ownership to the board, but let's win ugly if we have to, right?
So let's go further on that. When you say let's win ugly, give me an example of ugly. What does ugly look like as you're just building the team?
Like just simple math, like having enough quota deployed where not everyone has to do over and above their goal to get there, right? And that could be because you make everyone makes a wrong hire here or there, especially at an early stage startup. There's a lot of, it's hard to nail that persona. And also the product's not going to be ready. We're going to tell people we think things are good that aren't, and it's because we're learning and it's going to surprise us. And so there's going to be twists and turns. So let's build some room for error into how we get to that goal. I think a lot of tech founders or just early stage companies are really hard on themselves, that they want everything to be perfect right away. And so they envision this goal that's going to be super hard and super challenging, and everyone's going to learn so much, but everything is going to go perfect, so we're going to hit it. And we should hold ourselves to those high standards. But we should also realize that things aren't perfect, and we've got to grow into that execution. So that would be an example of win ugly to me, because you're going to make bets that are just wrong.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, which
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
and those bets can be macro and they can be micro, right? A micro
yeah,
bet could be a simple, let's say, email campaign or some sort of
yeah.
marketing strategy, and a macro might be investing in a particular channel or market, or deciding to, um, I don't know, maybe creating some sort of a price point or going enterprise when you're too early or something like that, right? There's
Yeah,
all kinds
yeah.
of stuff that can be happening, right?
Picking the wrong BD partner. You think this company would be perfect. Maybe one day they'll acquire us. The use case is there. And you should experiment with that. And then you go in there and you spend months with this company on all these events and all this kind of stuff. And you realize this isn't a good fit. It was good to take on that exercise. But if your goals don't accommodate for taking on that exercise, it's going to be really hard to come back from that.
You don't have to be specific, but give me an example or two of experiments that you experimented with that
Yeah.
frankly didn't work or failed there.
Yeah, like that just there, like a biz dev partner that you think is going to be super, super excellent. And they are a world-class company,
Mm-hmm.
but you just wishing it so does not mean that it's gonna, when you peel back the onion and it's like, oh wait, they don't compensate their salespeople for partnering, partner deals. So if I'm their sales manager, it's like, oh, you're hanging out with Sneak. Why? Like, what's that going to do for you? Like that. And again, well intentioned, the right gamble to take, but that just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't pay off. Betting that a feature set is going to be the next big thing, you're going to get those right 6 out of 10 times. You're going to do very well, but you're going to have 4 that it's like, oh, lambda computing is going to be the next big thing, and then it turns out not to be. That you might have spent some cycles trying to sell to those companies, and by doing that, you learn that the conversion rate isn't there. And again, if you don't have buffer, that could cost you your goal, right? Or that could cost you that next round of funding or something like that. So just building in, it's okay to win ugly, because ugly is where you make the mistakes and how you're going to evolve to be a world-class organization.
Yeah, and you just touched upon something where I was going to go next, which was the particular impact that some of those experiments that didn't work, how they impact the goal, your ability to make goal or to get that round of funding. How how quickly were you able to unwind yourself from that to move forward? Are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? And did it impact your ability to either hit a quarterly number or other milestones?
It may have cost us a quarterly number, potentially. I wouldn't even think to correlate it to that, but overall, I think we did very well with that, because again, we were comfortable with, let's get to a point where we can win ugly, right? And let's get to a point where we are confident. Because the other thing is, if you don't do that and then you take an experiment and it really hurts you, then all of a sudden you get into this, we'll talk about scarcity mindset. Then I'm afraid to experiment. I'm afraid to evolve because it was so painful last time. That's just as bad, because you don't know what you don't know. So you've got to have this culture of experimenting and failing fast. I think the other thing we did well was all of the departments within our company were very well aligned. So you look at product and engineering, really understanding what sales is trying to do, and sales constantly funneling feedback back to product and engineering. And so, you wouldn't leave a meeting without everyone being on the same page of exactly where we stood on a current initiative or experiment. Whereas when people aren't communicating that well, you can have 4 very smart people interpreting how something is going differently. And that's where experiments go on too long, because it's like sales is done with it. They're not trying it anymore, but the product leader still thinks we are. And so they're still shipping features related to that project, as an example. So I think we did a good job of that.
Yeah. And is that the mechanics of that? Are those communications happening daily, weekly? Or is it
daily.
Yeah.
Daily.
Okay.
I mean, ad hoc Slack conversations that go on forever. And at the time you're like, Jesus Christ, give me my time back. But that's so important. And then having standardized things where standardized meetings where all of those players are at. So like, as an example, I've talked about this before, like at product and engineering attended the sales forecast every week. And then the developer stand up where they presented what they had accomplished every 2 weeks. The entire sales team would go, and a sales engineer would interpret in Slack what that feature meant for the sales team. So like you'd be sitting there eyes glazed over, like I have no idea what this is. But then our SE would say like, hey, this feature, when you're up against X and this happens, well, now that's fixed. So now you don't have to worry about that anymore, and that you'd see the sales team like, yeah, let's go. And so it just created that synergy. So both ad hoc and regimented communication, like constantly.
Right. Okay. And so you mentioned the first person that was in there after the founders were selling, and that person, as that person starts to get overburdened, and you need to hire. Pretty evident that you need to add more. Where does it go from there? In other words, what are the building blocks for building a team? Some of the key components that you're looking for.
I'm hiring ahead for my first 1 to 3 hires, meaning I want to hire some people with some serious firepower. Everyone wants to get to like, oh, let's have this SDR program that's bottoms up and like people grow within the company. And that is great. We do that today. Early on, when you're going to be in the foxhole and it's going to be that first year and it's going to be hard, give me some people like who are strong, like that. And also like, I'm a big believer in diversifying your hire from job to job, meaning I bring along people and I love having a network and I love bringing people I've worked with in the past, but that's got to be a certain percentage of people. Like you've got to have new people because every job is different, right? And every organization is going to be different. So you don't want to have that like group think of like, I only hire the people who have worked with me in the past. I like interjecting new people, but super early on, I'm hiring someone who I can trust with my kids. Like I'm hiring someone who's family and who's strong, because I know it's going to be hard and it's going to be a long journey, and you need people around you that you can just rely on, and know you, and you kind of speak the same language. You kind of gain that efficiency of like, okay, we don't have to do that whole first 6-month thing where like I'm different with you in our one-on-one because like we're building, which is all good stuff. Like managers should be different to a new hire in the first 3 months, but like I don't have time for that. So I'm hiring someone who like, we've had those arguments where we've been in a conference room together screaming at each other and like walked out fine. You know what I mean? And so, I hired a former director of sales of mine named Amanda Parks. And like, also, very important, I think early on, those first hires you get them good slugs of equity. You want them involved. You want them to have, if this thing really takes off, they're going to have a game-changing, outcome from that, because you want those people to be that invested. And so, and also, someone like who trusts you, it's like, okay, you're going to have to come in the first year and be an individual contributor, even though you were already a director of sales, but they'll trust you on that because they've been on that journey with you in the past. Again, not saying people who wouldn't trust you on that are bad or that you don't want to hire those people, but I'm talking those first 6 months, the efficiency gain of just not having to explain that stuff, or it sounds bad, but sell internally, right? You do have to sell people on where you're going, not in that first 6, like you need people who know you. So I recommend that, like getting those 2 or 3 people that and once they start seeing success, that's when it's like, okay, I'm going to go outside of maybe my individual network and bring in some people that like I'm super comfortable with because of their results, but maybe I don't know them as well.
Now, in that scenario, what I'm hearing and what I'm interpreting, anyways, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is these seasoned people are enterprise sellers, right? In other words, they're accustomed to selling and closing larger deals. Is that a fair statement to make? Or not?
I would not say that. I would say they're Swiss Army knives.
Okay.
They've done enough enterprise to go be dangerous. They're confident in their ability. So if I say, hey, you got to go on site at Quicken Loans next month, they're not like, oh my God, I've never gone on site anywhere, I don't know what to do, all that. But they also can get down and do 10, 20K deals real fast because they understand, they've done some velocity selling, or they understand the importance of logo generation, right? There are also people who are addicted to startups. I love those people. And again, not saying now, there's times for different types of personas, and not saying that makes them better or worse, but I want people who are not like, where's my stuff?
Right.
Sure, I can get to work and crush my goal, but where's my stuff? Like, where's my ops person? Wait, we're on HubSpot CRM, not Salesforce? Like, ooh, I didn't know. There's nothing wrong with those types of people. That's not who I'm looking to get early on. I'm like, okay, this person gets it. They're going to get down and dirty. They also want to be leaders, and they're cool with like I always have a feel saying like, you got to be comfortable that you could put this person in front of your board members. You could put this person in front of your founder, and that you'd be comfortable that they go spend a lot of time with those people, and that they see the value in doing that. Because, there's nothing wrong with a salesperson who's like, hey, Jay, just give me my list and I'll be over here in the corner. And like, I'm going to crush my number, but like, I don't want to get involved in all this stuff. Like, wait, you need me to go meet with product for 2 hours and give feedback on those 10 deals that didn't close? Why? They didn't close. I want to move on to new deals. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But at this time, you want people who are like super interested, who are like, yeah, I'll fly to our headquarters in Tel Aviv and spend a week there and sell from there so I can give the engineering team feedback, right? Like, you want people who see the value in that.
Then how do you scale up past that, right? Obviously, you've got folks that are in your network and that you trust. How do you scale from there in terms of your talent acquisition strategy? Who are you identifying and hiring? But even more importantly, I think, which is the onboarding and coaching and training, right? In other words, to get people effective as quickly as possible.
I think you have to be very aware of your strengths and weaknesses around onboarding.
Okay.
So like, I'll give you an example then that is not true now, because we have amazing onboarding. We have great enablement now. And of course it can always be better, but but then like, one thing I realized quickly, I couldn't hire someone that didn't at least have some experience with one of our personas in some way or form. Meaning they could be from cybersecurity, but never having interacted with developers, or they could be from dev tooling and having sold to dev teams before and not have any knowledge of cybersecurity. But I couldn't have both of those answers be no. Why? Because this is hard. We have high goals. We're moving fast. And the edge, I don't care how great a salesperson they are. And it was hard because you'd meet with great salespeople that you just knew, like, I know that, but I just don't, I can't set you up to fail. And our enablement is not where it needs to be to ramp you up on both of those things. So that was like an eyes wide open moment around enablement and the type of people we would go for early on. And I would have very honest conversations with people like, look, I think you're great. Like, at my last company, I would have already hired you. Like, let's stay in touch. Let's meet in 6-12 months. Let's see where our enablement program is then. And let's see if you're still interested, and let's see if there's a fit. But I would really look early on for people who had one or those two experience points that they could check.
Let me ask you this then, because it begs the question. Would you recommend, or let's say, for instance, if you were to do it even over again, would you recommend bringing on sales enablement earlier so that it expands your ability to hire somebody like that because they have the other stuff would be
probably a year earlier, but I don't blame us because we were just growing so fast. You talk about unicorns. We got hit with that brand pretty early on, and there's a lot of things that you want to tackle, and there's only so many of them you can do at one time when you're in hypergrowth. But it's also tough because early on, I like that it forces me to spend a lot of time with the rep and transplant all of my institutional knowledge. So, early on, I don't like companies where it's like, not like, that's harsh, but like, I'm scared for companies that are like, oh, we've already hired a sales trainer, because it kind of lets me off the hook. Like, I got to be a big teacher early on, because we're not just training people, we're convincing people it's possible. Because this is early stage. Even when you've had some success, you go to so many meetings where it's like, who, sneak who, or snick or snike, and you're just like, oh man, like, you have those days early on, you're like, is this possible? So you got to be there to coach and train and get people there. And I think like the first 10 to 20, the sales leader, in my opinion, has to find those first 10 to 20. You can't, the same thing like with enablement, like, you can't go to outside recruiters. No shade to your organization, which is tremendously valuable. But for me, I got to go find those first 10 to 20, because again, if I'm ever going to use an organization like yours, I have to teach you what the profile is And where I think a lot of companies mess up is like, I don't really know what my profile is. And then I hire a recruiting company who's a great velocity driven recruiting company. Now they quickly bring in 9 people for me and they're the wrong people. And it's not your fault. It's like, I didn't know the profile enough because I didn't do it enough early on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is a balancing act with that enablement. Also, when you don't have a full-time enablement, it forces the founders to stay engaged and train people. It's like, oh, you didn't like how that sales call went? I need you to meet with Timmy tomorrow then and tell him why and work with him on that. And our founders were great with that. And that was a huge difference for us.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you want the founders to be involved that long?
Yes.
Though? In other words,
yes. If you don't want the founders to be involved, you picked wrong. back to the things I look at with when I'm starting.
Yeah.
If you're scared to bring your founders in, I don't know that you did your due diligence. Or you better be giving really hard feedback to the board via the relationships you develop with the venture capitalists that I need some help managing this founder, or we need more from this founder. But yeah, you definitely want them involved because it's gonna be hard. You're gonna lose deals. And if you keep everyone at arm's length, they're gonna blame you every time. Versus if you show, human moments, you show them what's going on, they're going to understand and they're going to help you get better.
Well, it reminds me of one of the things that you and I talked about on our initial call, which is you said most startups fail because of internal conflict. And I can see how that might even lead to internal conflict if you are keeping the founders at arm's 100%. Length. Yeah. So tell me about that. How do you, first of all, where did you form that opinion? In other words, had you seen it before yourself?
Yes. I've lived that. I've lived that at several organizations.
Yes.
And again, maybe, also I don't want to, I guess one thing I want to go back to, because I think it's important.
Sure.
You at some points in your career, you have to take a leap. And so if you join the wrong team, but it gets you that director role and you do 3 years there and it validates you to the market that you can do that, I come off as a little bit of a snob saying you have to make you have to have this system and make it perfect. But, you also are going to have some pain from that. And so while that was still the right thing to do, it's like at the next place, do you learn from that? Right. And for me, it just comes down to, I can give you more training. I can hopefully give you more leads. I can pay you more. I can give you more support. I can't give you that 25th hour in the day. I have not figured that one out yet. And so how is your startup going to spend its time? Is it going to be spending its time being in front of customers or potential customers as much as possible? Or are you going to spend time finger pointing internally and as a result, not spending all this time in front of potential customers, right?
Yes.
For me, that's everything. And then, God forbid you've got reps that are fighting. It's like, we're in the first year here and you guys are arguing over whose account this is. There's 90 million accounts in the world. First year, a rep in the US can work a deal in Australia. Like, don't tell me you're going to argue with Tim over accounts. Like, I'm going to pass out. And so I'll put stuff into comp plans where it's like everyone's paid 25% on the global number. So you're getting 25% of every deal that closes. And that's me paying you to never hear you argue about something internally, because every second you're trying to take my time or your time about that, you're not in front of a customer.
Right. So next question then is, what about when operations? When do you bring in operations, given what you just said about potentially stratifying the sales team or sales
I like sales ops early.
Okay.
And again, hire for someone strong with a motor who can be basically sales ops, marketing ops, biz dev ops, that wants to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think the other you talk about we just talked about distractions internally. When everyone when it's like, okay, and you'll make the spreadsheet. It's like, oh, okay. Like, I'm the worst data analyst in the world. I'm here to analyze the data. I'm not here to imprint it in Excel. I didn't take that class in college. I'll admit it. You don't want me doing that. I can do it, but know. Right. And so then what you see is as things start to grow and there's more expectations, you have this internal meeting to make a decision. And you realize, oh crap, all 5 people at this meeting spent time making their own spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
And back to how do we spend most of our time in front of customers? Getting one person who can say, hey folks, I'll bring the data to all of you. And now your meeting can be about agreeing or disagreeing on the conclusions from that data. That is such an efficiency gain. So I like sales ops real early.
Did you bring in sales ops early at Sneak or at Zero Turnaround?
Yes.
How
Yes.
early? When
Yes,
you say
and
early,
yes.
when you say early, how
Like that
early
first year, within that first year, I mean, we probably only had 4 salespeople. And I learned this from my COO, Alex Latz at Zero Turnaround. He brought in an extremely strong operations person early, and it was one of the things that made us successful. And I think, I also like independence from our sales ops person. So I don't manage sales ops because I don't want rose-colored glasses. I don't want to be able to influence, like, hey, make that look great or cut out that data that looks like crap. And not that anyone does that from a bad place, but everyone's working hard, everyone's emotional. So like CFO or COO manages sales ops. And if something's bad, I want to hear about it. Because again, I don't want the temptation of being like, hey, just let's give it another week before we talk about that. I'm not concerned about it. Well, maybe I should be.
Now, is that something you negotiate up front and say, I don't want sales ops reporting to me? Or is it like, tell me, what are the mechanics of how you're actually?
Like when I, and again, Sneak was incredibly supportive. When I made the case for, hey, we should bring in sales ops. So one of the things, and it was actually, I think, a selling point, because I think founders are oftentimes concerned, oh, this sales leader is going to bring in this person and he's going to control all the data now. And I don't know, and I said, listen, I don't want, it was a referral. A guy, shout out to Ryan Walsh, an amazing sales ops leader or just ops leader. I don't want you to feel like I'm going to get biased information. I don't want him reporting to me. Like, this should be an independent source of truth for all of us. And so I think it's super important. Now, if you don't have someone, again, sounds like a little bit of a snobby answer. If you don't have someone capable of managing the person, you should still manage them until you have someone capable. Because it could be that it's just, if it's a very technical company, you might not have someone who's comfortable doing that. Then of course manage it, but ultimately you want that to be its own division that just is a neutral arbiter of the data.
Sales enablement and sales ops are obviously strategic decisions that you've made, and obviously that need to be key hires, obviously, to enable kind of growth that you've seen and that you're having there at Sneak and that you had at Zero Turnaround. What are some of the bottlenecks that constrain growth, so to speak, right? Tell me about those types of things where people should avoid, or that you wish you hadn't had to go through.
I mean, again, arguing about internal stuff and getting wrapped up in like just stuff that we don't have time for. Again, I know that sounds like a simplistic answer, but I think it's so important. I think again, worrying about traditional problems that you don't need to worry about yet. Well, we need to build out this entire channel strategy and have a channel team. Why?
Right.
You're not there yet. Why worry? Like, you've got enough to worry about. Don't worry about that. I think people worry about setting precedents too much. Well, we can't have this US team work this deal. Like, my best rep is in the US and there's a deal in Germany, but I don't want to let him work it or she work it because I'm scared of setting the precedent that US reps spend time in EMEA. Well, yeah, that's right. But I think in a small enough organization, you can explain to everyone involved, including the rep, that, hey, this is a one-off situation, but we think this could be a needle-moving deal for us that gets us to a marker that maybe gets us funding or what have you. I'd take the risk of setting that precedent versus not doing what I think gives us the best chance to be successful there. And that you have to commit to over communication to get that done. But, I think that's the case. And then that non-alignment between engineering, sales, marketing, you have plenty of time to get huge and have those challenges arise early on. I mean, you're under 50 people. Everyone should be in lockstep, like if the CEO, the hallway test, right? If there's a big initiative, all those people should give the CEO the same answer in the hallway about how things are going. If under 50 people, the CEO went around to those 5 people and said, hey, how's this going? And that CEO gets different answers from each of those 4 people, they're not communicating enough, and you're not forcing communication enough.
Right.
Because not being on the same page just slows everything down.
That makes sense. Where were you?
One more, being terrified of discounting. Oh my God, if we discount this, more specific to sales, if we discount now, we'll devalue the product forever. No, you won't. Trade dollars for speed all day long. Get deals done. Get your salespeople feeling confident. Build a huge customer base. You have plenty of, the greatest thing about SaaS is you have a chance every year to make them pay more. Let people win early on. Like, you don't have to win every single time.
What's the trick to that, though? When you say in SaaS, you have an ability every year to get people to pay more. What's the, how are you able to do that? What's the some of the, I guess, strategic decisions or operational processes that need to get put in place to do that?
Well, product and engineering need to keep delivering on great product, right? Because the easiest way to upsell them is, hey, I've got something new and it's also awesome. What do you think?
Yep.
But I like just being very transparent with customers when we're helping them out. Like, hey, Jay, I get it. It's a tough year for you folks. Or, you don't think we're of value right now. And yeah, our list price on this is $100,000 and you only want to pay 20. Listen, we're here for a long-term relationship, but I want to make sure you're cognizant of the fact that we keep a conversation going about if you are seeing that value, and that over the course of our relationship, you're transparent around that. And on the quote, I'm going to put partnership discounting. And what that means is every year, I just want to evaluate the partnership. And if you see that you're starting to see more value from us, I hope it's okay that we would come to you with an offer that's going to be more, raise the price because it's commensurate with the value you're seeing. Now, if you're not, we can have that conversation and see if it makes sense to keep everything at this rate. I think just being honest with people about that, or it's like, okay, Jay, you want 50% off? Okay. Would you be a reference though? Would you do a webinar with us like that? Because that's long-term money. That's going to have so much more of an impact than that $30K you could get now. I just think as an organization, you got to be confident making those bets.
Where were you 5.5, almost 5.5 years ago as it pertains to revenue, and where are you guys now?
Well, unfortunately, private company. I can't necessarily divulge exactly that, but I could say we've had very fast revenue growth.
And we talked offline, I guess, in pre-interview about 10x mindset, right? In getting to an exponentially beyond where you are now. And you mentioned it earlier today in the podcast in terms of being a category leader. How do you get from where you are today to where you want to be, like where that next vision is, that next big thing? What are some of the things that need to happen?
I think you gotta hire people who are on board with that vision.
Okay.
I think you've gotta surround yourself with super interesting people who are super interested in learning and mastery and getting better. And again, are motivated more by that than protecting what they have today. When you referenced abundance for scarcity, it's very hard to grow when you're only focused on protecting what you have today versus you're constantly looking to expand what you have and or understand that there's always enough for everybody if we figure out the right systems, processes, and setup. And so that's super important. I mean, I think getting people who just naturally align to that way of thinking is really important. You're not going to get everyone right, and sometimes you can't, and it's somewhat on you too. Like sometimes you don't figure out what that right process is for everyone to have everything right away. And so, people have legitimate, hey, you told me this would happen and it hasn't happened yet. But that doesn't mean I still don't believe that with every fiber of my being that we can get to that point. And I'm going to do everything in my power to get us there. And I think you're only successful again with that if you're surrounded by people who have a very similar mindset towards that.
How do you get the best out of your people, whether it's direct, managers that are reporting to you or individual contributors? Like, how do you actually, with what you just said, right? First of all, finding the best people, but then realizing that the best people might not always have the best days. right? Or the best months
Yeah.
and so forth. Like, how do you,
Yeah.
what's your communication process, or what do you,
Yeah, I think as a third or fourth line leader, I think where sometimes people in my position have a tough, as you grow, you start not knowing people,
Mm.
and you start not building relationships that allow you to be super honest with people.
Mm.
Because that's so effective when you can, and back to like why I hire my first 3 people are people I've gone through that whole journey with. I just don't have the time early on to develop those bonds with someone new, but now I can. And I think some leaders are worried about, micromanagement. Like, oh, well, if I start meeting with my direct reports, are they going to think I'm like criticizing them or anything? And I think it's just being transparent with those people that, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm here to help you, and I'm here to build these relationships throughout the sales team so I can be honest with someone. I was on, she'll chuckle when she listens to this podcast, but I was on, I had a monthly with a rep today who I think is just fantastic. I think she's going to conquer the world, but I think she's holding herself back with just, she knows what to do. She just needs to go do it. And before the meeting, I told her manager, hey, I'm going to light her up a little bit today in a good way, like in a positive way, but like, I'm really going to challenge her. So just an FYI, she might come back to you in a little bit of a weird headspace. But because I both developed that relationship with that first line, that rep, and that manager was like, oh, hell yeah, go do that. Instead, but if I hadn't developed the relationship with the first line manager, she'd be like, oh God, my boss's boss is going to go light up one of my reps. Like, that sounds terrible. But because I've taken the time to build a relationship with her and the time to build a relationship with the rep, she knew exactly what I meant when I said that. And then I think, jury's still out, but I think the rep also felt great about, like, understood that, I was saying with both managers and reps, like, I only spend time with people I think can be great. And so don't take what I'm about to say as criticism. You're in a natural evolution of where you are in your role, but I'm going to give you some challenges because I think you can handle this and I think you can be great.
This may sound like a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
Please.
Which is, how do you build relationships with your people, with your team? Like, how do you describe that? Yeah. How have you done that?
I think getting to know, I mean, I don't think it's anything groundbreaking. It's not a dumb question, but it's what motivates people, like, I see us again when we didn't, you have a ton of artwork behind you, right? As we build a relationship, I'd love to know what that's all about and why you care about that and why that motivates you. And I then can share with you some reasons why, like, that's not how I think about it, or that's so cool because I never thought about it. Just getting to know why someone kicks, what their goals are, getting them to a place where they're comfortable enough with your leadership style, which I believe, it can be intense and challenging, but it also has to be consistent. People need to know what time the train leaves every day. And so if one day I'm super happy and the next day I'm like very reserved and quiet, like, you got to be your transparent self with people. Or if you're in a quiet mood, hey Jay, I'm quiet today. Like, so it's nothing it's nothing you're doing. I just wanted you to know, like, that's why I'm where I am. I think it's just that taking the time to do that.
Is it an informal thing though, or a formal thing? In other words, especially as your team is growing, right? Like, how do you find the time to build that relationship with that?
Proactive scheduling. So I'll get, hey, I want to, it doesn't have to be hours and hours of time, but 15-minute check-in once a month, 30-minute check-in once a month. If someone's really doing, I love the bell curve to save you time, which is, if someone's doing really poorly, that I know is great. Everyone's great, but they're struggling, or someone's doing really great. I want to meet with you, that because you're in a place where you're either ready to take it to the next level, or you're in a place where you need a little assistance, right? And I think, again, this is also where that profile of super interested people who want to get better, you've got to have that, because if there's nothing wrong with it, but if someone just works to live and isn't into this, hey, I do this for the paycheck and I want to go home and there's stuff I care about that I don't really ever want to share with you, there's nothing wrong with that person, but my leadership style is probably not going to work so well with them. So it's about knowing who to hire and who will really want this. It doesn't make me better. It's about knowing yourself and what type of people are going to react to that, I think.
Absolutely. I get that. Well, I'm glad I've gotten to know you, Ethan, over the pre-interview and also this episode. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure other people who are listening to this will be happy as
Yeah.
well. Go ahead.
I love networks. I'm obsessed with meeting new people, like just building relationships. And who knows, in 3 years, I give you a call about something and it leads to a
Yes.
crazy fun experience or something like that. Mark Roberts, the SVP of HubSpot, who kind of built that whole empire, who I luckily got some time to spend with him. One thing he said to me that really resonated, he played a game when he went to weddings where he would see how long he could go just learning about the person he was talking to.
Yes.
And then he would try to beat that with the next person because he was like, I know me, like I'm boring. And it was just that infectious desire to learn about people. It really resonated with me. And that's something I constantly try to do.
Oh man, that's fantastic. I actually interviewed him for my book, The Goats of Growth. And yeah, he's fascinating. Awesome.
He's awesome.
Ready for the rapid fire 5?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. First question. What motivates you?
People.
Okay.
No, I mean, people helping people see the light bulb go off.
Name a big goal you have right now, and when would you like to accomplish it?
Pay off all my mortgages.
All of your mortgages. Wow. Okay.
I have 2 houses. I have a vacation house and my regular house. Right.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm not intercontinental or anything like that. But just that would be a huge milestone. I feel like that we're not there yet, but hopefully one day. Yeah.
We have similar goals. What's your preferred way to learn new information and to stay sharp?
Reading. And if not reading, tracking people down and saying, just tell me how you did that. Like what was that? And I'll pull people from my company from all different departments and just say, I saw that was so cool. Can you just explain that to me? Because to me, it's more about how people think that opens your eyes to what's possible. Yeah.
Sounds like you should have a podcast like this. This is why one of the reasons why I love it so much.
There we go. Yeah, I love podcasts. Yeah.
How many hours of sleep do you average per night?
7 to 8. I think sleep is so important. I think it's super important. And Sunday night is catch up night. So, get the kids to bed and go to bed at like embarrassingly early, like 7 or 8, and get up at 6 or 7. Like you got to recharge. I've been won over by that whole movement.
That is fantastic. 12 hours on Sunday. That's crazy.
Dude, it's catch up night. Yeah, but you gotta have so little ego about how cool you are that you literally are in bed at 7:30 like you're your grandfather. But if you do it, I'm telling you, it feels great.
Oh, believe me, I want to do it. I got to find out how you actually are able to wind down so early, because I go to bed at 7:30. Like my brain is racing or doing wanting to do other things. For another few hours. And I do yoga and meditate. So go figure that. What's your favorite thing to do when you aren't working?
Cooking with my family. I think those the things you're talking about that gets your mind in a place where it just kind of shuts off in a good way. I advise people, it's going to be different for every single person, but finding what that is for you. For me, when I can just like follow a recipe and have to like nail execution on it, just everything shuts off. Past that, it's my watch addiction and looking online at watches way too much and hopefully not buying them. But yeah, that's a challenge too.
I love it. I want to find out more about that.
Yeah.
Here's a bonus question that
let's do it.
My previous guest wanted me to ask you. Actually, it relates to books. It relates to books. So here we go. What is a non-business book that has helped you out in business?
Non-business book that has helped me out in business.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of morbid in the topic, but there's a book called Dreamland that chronicles, a big book, like 700, 800, 900 pages, nonfiction, and it chronicles the opioid addiction in North America.
Mhm.
And it just re-impacted for me empathy for people, and not understand, and trying to always understand what people are going through. And not related to that. Like, I think everyone who's having a bad day has some type of substance abuse, but just, man, life is hard. And curveballs come at you from all over, and you know, it can be the littlest thing, like an injury in college that gets you, oh, hey, take this, you'll feel better. And people's lives are changed, whether it's that or something else. And you got to give people second chances, and you got to really try to help people out. And I think that has helped me in the way I think I used to be a little bit less, probably kind. I wasn't a jerk, but I was a little bit less forgiving about people's problems. And I think that I'm still evolving on that, but I think it's a really important thing to remember. Even I tell a new SDR who's cold calling, and they're like, oh, that guy was a jerk. It's like, hey, that guy probably just got a call from his kid's school that his kid's sick and he has to leave and go pick up his kid, right? Versus the person you thought was awesome just found out they're getting a raise. Like, you don't know, walk a mile in someone's shoes. You don't know what people are going through. Try to be kind.
Yeah, for sure. What a great answer. I'm glad that question was asked, because I thought that answer was
a good question.
Fantastic answer. So thank you for that. Sure.
Yeah.
So then I'll turn it around to you, which is, what question would you like me to ask my next guest?
Is it like, it can't be like a trivia question, right? It can't be like there's one right answer, right? No?
Maybe. I don't know. Let's try it. What do you got?
I mean, I was going to say, it's like, I have a theory, like, why is sales the best profession in the world? And it's because it's actually incredibly kind. Like, there's 4 times a year where everyone gets dragged back to the starting line and has to start at 0, right? And so, if you're a bad accountant, you're just a bad accountant for the rest of your life, right? But why is sales so great? It's actually incredibly forgiving. But I don't know if that's the question. I guess related. Ask them what job would they do if they couldn't do sales, or whatever. Maybe it's not a salesperson, but whatever they're in today, what would they do if they could no longer do that?
Yep, I believe it will be a salesperson, because 99% of the people that I interview are.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're tangent, but okay, what would they do? What job would they do if they weren't in sales, or more broadly, what profession would they choose if they weren't in the profession they are in right now? And by the way, I love your point of view on sales as a profession versus something like an accountant, because you're right. Like, you literally get to start over at the end of every.
All salespeople created equal.
That's right.
There's no other profession. Everyone's back at 0. And you get this shot to and it's like, when you're doing well in sales, everyone loves you. And then when you're not doing well in sales, everyone's like, oh, embrace that. Like, you have the ability to just totally change people's narrative with 3 months of good work. and so, don't give up. Like, you can change that narrative so quickly.
Oh, man.
Where else can you do that? Yeah.
I love it. Fantastic. This has been great. I want people to be able to get in touch with you, to either say thank you, to perhaps maybe ask you some follow-up questions, or maybe apply for a job at Sneak. How should folks get in touch with you?
You can just ping me on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm a LinkedIn junkie, like most of us out here. Just connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message referencing this, and I'd be happy to have a conversation.
You heard him. Reference the Goats of Growth podcast.
So yes, Goats of Growth podcast. This has been fantastic, Jay.
Move you to the top of the inbox. Ethan Schechter, thank you for participating in the Goats of Growth.
Thank you. And talk soon, Jack.
Goodbye, everyone. I'm cueing the music.